Welcome back, people. Thank you for joining me again on Cemetery Chronicles. Okay, so new adventure. We are now in MERTHYR TYDFIL in the parish of Vena. Behind me you can see St. Gwenno'S church that we're going to have a look around. There is a notable burial here, and I'd like to add a lot of history that we can delve into today. Right, so we're at St. Gwenno'S Church in the parish of Vena. The church in front of us and the churchyard was originally built around 1869. Now, as I stated earlier, there is quite a bit of history related to this church. The current grounds that we're in was donated for the church to be built by Miss Williams, Mary Williams of Vena, hence the parish of Vena that we're now in. Now, as I stated, the church was built between 1868 and 1869, according to the records I could find, and it's built 100 yards away, just through the clearing down there, would be the church that this replaces. Now we're going to take a look at that as well, but for now we'll have a look at this St. Gwenno'S Church, and it was built by Robert Thomas Crochet. He was a local ironmaster. We'll go a little bit more in detail with regards to that gentleman a little bit further into our story. We got a nice valley down there, just peeking through those trees is going to be our next stop. But let's take a little walk around first. So as I said, around the 1868, 1869 mark, and the church was actually built, like I said, by Richard Crochet, the local ironmaster. He offered to build the church because the previous one became into disrepair and was disused. So he offered to build this church, but there'd already been funds raised for the building. Well, part of the deal that he made was that he would foot the bill for this church if the £700 that was already raised was given to another church in Kevin Coyd. We'll have a look. There's a little plaque out the back stating the name of that church. This behind me is partly why we're here as well. We'll be a little bit cryptic for now. We'll come back to that. Right, so St. Gwenno'S Church, as far as I could find out, is named after the abbot Gwenno'S. He was alive around between the 4th and the 5th century. He was a travelling abbot, bringing Christianity to the various towns and small villages around Britain. He was known to be in Scotland, Wales, England, and basically he brought Christianity to this area firstly in the 4th to 5th century. Can't find a lot about him, but this is who the church was named after. So we're going to go way back in history, as far back as the late 6th century, early 7th century AD. So that's 1200 years or so we're going back. That's when the first wooden chapel was built, about 100 yards through those trees. Now this lasted almost 600 years, this wooden chapel. Then in 1291 there was a battle waged for the local land. The chapel itself, unfortunately, was burnt down, and then in 1295 the stone chapel, which we're going to go and see the remains of, was built. Then, as I subsequently said, turn of the 19th century, end of the 18th century, that was in disrepair, falling down. So then St. Gwenno'S church was built. A little bit of history. Let's go take a look. I've got to watch our footing going down here. It's a bit of loose ground. And there's graves. Took it everywhere. So again, as respectfully as we can, we'll make our way through. Now there is, I think it's either 1 or 2 war graves here at St. Gwenno'S Church and Graveyard. Commonwealth war graves from the, I think it's from the First or the Second World War. If we come across them, we'll take a look. But a lot of it is now overgrown, as you can see, and it's quite treacherous underfoot. So that's where we're headed, to the original church. So I've just found the 2 war graves. Again, I'm trying to watch where I walk because it's all overgrown. I don't want to be it continues down as well. There is a stream just beyond. It's a shame really that it's been left to come in this condition. So it is the first 3274 Guardsman A. Woodett, Welsh Guards, and the other, if I can get around, is 487 a Sergeant C. Woodett, South Wales Borders, 1915, aged 28, and the other chap 24, aged 19. So they're stark reminder of the horrors of war. So we have found a slight path through. As I say, it's all overgrown. This isn't being looked after at all, which is a crime in itself. We've got headstones toppled. St. Gwenno'S behind us. And one of the original stone churches in front of us. We're going to make our way through. That's the parapet. Now it isn't complete, obviously it's ruins, but this dates back to 1295. Let's take a look. Even now, after 600 years, it's still standing. It's a foreboding figure. Timbers have rotted away. Let's have a look. This would have been the original staircase to go up to the second floor. And I did find that there was a plaque placed somewhere around here. We'll have a look. And there is a walkway. And obviously somebody left a quad. Ridiculous. There we are. So the original wooden church can be dated back to AD 874, although the site may be as old as AD 714. This present construction dates from 1295 and was used long after the completion of the new church nearby in 1870. So there we are. As I said, the original church would extend out further. This has just been made safe basically. And there's a little footbridge over to the stream. I may take a look over there later. And then we've got a little stream right at the side. Nice and calming and tranquil, as you want in a cemetery. Again, it's a shame that this site isn't being looked after better. Now originally, from what I can gather, this side of the church where the parapet would have continued over, not far off to where the tree is. That would have been the main body of the church. Cast your mind back, way back, 600 something years back, before this church was built. This church obviously was 1295. If we go back a further 4 years before that to 1291, a little way over there was the original wooden church, or chapel as they called it back then. That unfortunately was burnt to the ground during the battle that took place here. I gotta say this right. The battle was called Massie, and it was between two Norman lords. I'm going to read from my notes as well because I want to get the details right. It was between Humphrey de Bon, the 3rd Earl, and Gilbert de Clare, the 7th Earl of Gloucestershire. Now the battle was over the grounds surrounding this church. It was sanctioned by the king at the time as well. Now apparently, from everything I've read, this battle was one of the fiercest battles waged in war at that particular time. There was bloodshed on both sides, copious amount of bloodshed on both sides. In fact, many of the dead of the battle, as many as 100, was buried just over there underneath a mound. The field that it took place in was known as the Field of Slaughter because the battle was so ferocious. In the mid-1800s, some of the mound was washed away by heavy storms, and some skulls became exposed from the bodies that were buried there from the battle. Those bones and skulls was brought into the churchyard and buried, obviously with the respect that they deserved. So I'm going to have a quick look to see if we can see the mound, and then we'll take a final look at this church, the 1295 church, before we go back up to St. Gwenno'S. Church behind us, the church wall, little bridge over the stream, and then up at the side, if you see above me by here, matching the depictions of everything I've read, it looks to be in the right area. that I would have taken this to be the mound under which a lot of the soldiers who died during the Battle of Massie were buried. Now this ties in as well, because I stated in the 1800s some of the banking was washed away by heavy storms down into the stream, the description, and then exposed some of the bones and skulls that were later taken into the graveyard. So you can imagine what that battle must have been like, just for the field that was here at the time, to be known as the field of slaughter. So as you can see, the 1295 St. Gwenno'S church still standing, part of it anyway, but as I said, it's all overgrown. There's graves down further down, there's some here behind the metal bars that's just fully overgrown, so I'm not going to try and disturb anything. We'll make our way back up 100 yards or so to what we can call the new 1869 Guenos church. So we're back at St. Gwenno'S, 1868, 1869-ish built. Point of interest, most of the stained glass windows was donated by the local dignitaries, but also, unfortunately, I can't go inside to show you today as the church isn't open, but inside the church there's a sculpture of an angel that was donated by a local sculptor. Now his name was Joseph Edwards. From around 1814 he was born. Point of note, he lived in MERTHYR, but some of his work is in Westminster Abbey to this day. Again, the tower, if I crank up to the tower there, in 1969 the tower was on the verge of collapse. This was remodelled and a new steeple built. Around 1990 new internal floors was replaced. There is a building opposite, if I can point there, the white building. Now that was originally the church tavern, it was called, but originally it was built around 1823 and it originally served as the law courts for the area. Later it was turned into a drinking house, a pub, and then more recently it's been converted into somebody's home, so we're not going to go in and disrespectful there. So anyway, let's go around to the other side where we can wrap up our video with the second reason why we're here. The first being 1200 years of history. Come on people, you don't get that every day. Let's go around. So finally, this is the resting place of Robert Thomas Crochet. He was born in 1817 at Carmarthen Castle, which is about 4 miles in that direction. Now obviously we know he was the one who footed the bill for the church. He was the youngest son of William Crochet II, whose father started or took over the ironworks and built it up to the massive industry here in MERTHYR that there was, the largest in the world at the time. He was handed the family business when his older brother unfortunately drowned crossing the Bristol Channel. Now, I am reading from my notes because it is information I want to get right. So he took over the ironworks and the mines, which the Crochet family owned, with his wife Rose. Now, he was quite a well-liked man. He helped, with his wife, provide schools, libraries, books for the local people, the local workers of Merthyr Tydfil. He also started the MERTHYR brass band. He actually implemented and started that, as music was his passion. Unfortunately, the marriage wasn't a happy one, and his wife later on decided to leave, go live elsewhere. MERTHYR Castle, or MERTHYR Park as it's known now, was owned by the Crochet, owned and built by the Crochet family, and that's where Robert lived. Unfortunately, in 1860, he had a stroke which left him deaf. So, being a man of culture, he decided to take up photography. Now again, this was in the first few years of photography. His daughter, his youngest daughter, helped him, and from everything I read, there's a bit of a black cloud over their relationship. We'll go into that in a little bit. But basically, some of his pictures are kept in the National Gallery and the National Archives because of their importance. So, he died, unfortunately, 10th of May 1879, so only 9, maybe 10 years after building the church. At the time, he was known as the Iron King of Wales, and I said, quite liked man. They employed, the ironworks and the mines, around 5,000 men, women and children, but unfortunately, towards the end of his life, the iron foundry started to decline due to the advantages of steel and an invention that changed the properties of the steel. So unionization was starting to come in as well. So unfortunately, he closed the foundry in 1876. The mines, however, stayed open and employed a few hundred. At its height, Merthyr Tydfil and its foundries and mines was the heart of the Industrial Revolution at one point. It started off as just a few farms and some shepherds, really. But then obviously, due to the iron ore being found, the seams of granite and various other minerals being found, due to the industrial age, it boomed. But there was a price to pay. Living conditions for the workers was horrendous. No sanitation, no running water, very little food, paid in tokens, which had to be spent in the ironmasters' shops. Harsh environment. Cholera was rife. So too was infant deaths. At one point, I can't remember the name, but it was remembered in a scribe that at the time Merthyr Tydfil was like living in hell. The glow from the furnaces, which ran 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, could be seen for miles all around, glowing in the night sky, almost like a rendition of hell. So, for those people that were alive and worked in the foundries and the mines back then, it's hard to imagine what life must have been like. And all to feed the wealth of people like the Crochets. Whether he did good or not in his life, it's a mixed bag when you read the literature. He gave the church, he gave the schools, the libraries, the band, the photographic archives. It's hard to know which way to lean. The Industrial Revolution was a hard enough time, but then it was done at the lives of the poor, lives of the workers, lives of the children. So there we are. I'm going to call that done. This was St. Gwenno'S Church in Merthyr Tydfil, the parish of Wener. Steeped in history, steeped in blood, both from the battle and from its workers of the Industrial Revolution. I hope you've enjoyed. A lot of information to digest. We'll put the drone up, we'll have a look around, we'll take some pics, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. Please do click like, subscribe even, share, tell your friends, get it out there. I enjoy making these videos. I hope you enjoy watching them. Stay safe, people. See you on the next one.